Yes, now.
Yes. Yes, sir. Hear you now.
I'm in, you're not on.
No, he's muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. There's Kim. Trying to get our speakers right here.
Can either of you hear us?
Yes, I can.
You hear us?
I can. Hear you good.
Using
It
one
sounds
ear.
like they can hear us, we just can't hear them.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me put it back on my computer.
Yeah, can you hear us? Okay, yeah, just give us a thumbs up or down if it's not loud enough. Okay, thanks.
Can't hear you.
Samsung, right?
Can you hear us, Rob, now or no?
Thumbs up, down.
For some reason I can't.
Yes, we hear you good.
Oh, I gotta have to guess.
I tried getting them to just give us one of these, but
You can hear us, right? Okay, Tim can hear us. Rob, you can hear us. Okay, good.
We just
All right,
can't hear
Rob.
them though.
Well, they're both muted. That's okay.
Even if they're not muted though, can we hear them?
Can you hear me now?
Rob, say if you can
Yes,
hear
I can
us.
hear you.
Tim just said something and I didn't hear anything.
Oh, yeah, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear the fire chief there, but and everyone else, but I don't think they can hear us.
Kim is saying something, but you can't hear him either.
I think I'm looking at the wrong.
What's that? Randy?
yeah, hey Rob, stay on the
Operator.
phone for a minute.
Operator.
You can hear us, correct?
How do you hear me?
Not hearing you, correct?
Correct.
No, we can't hear
Trying to
them.
figure out what speakers.
Speaker, yeah, for some reason my,
Just stay on the phone for one. We're not, well, hold on though.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, just stay on the phone for a minute. Trying to get it so if somebody wants to talk, they can hear them.
If we could
I
hear
think
him.
I can hear him now. I think we can hear Rob.
You can hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, now we're all set, thanks.
All right.
He's good. He's
Come on.
good, Dave. He knows what he's doing. All right, thanks for your patience,
Okay, now
guys.
mute him.
All right. Well, for you gentlemen, we just started the budget work session. Haven't gotten anywhere yet. That's fine. Randy, when you're ready, do a roll call.
Okay, trustee Marks,
Present.
trustee Emerson,
Here.
trustee LaRue,
Here.
trustee Wiegand,
Here.
treasurer Johnson,
Here.
clerk Rattari is here, and supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff present is manager Kangas and fire chief Dan Shanahan, and accountant Lois Stonehouse is here in the back.
Excellent, thank you. So this is the first, as I said, of our budget meetings. We're starting off with general fund and then the fire department, if we get to that today. And I believe we were gonna, do you have a presentation for us on the rec millage, or should we do the general fund first, or what's your thoughts?
Jason was supposed to zoom in. I don't see him, but he's also on vacation this week, so.
What were we doing, Dave?
What?
Are we doing a presentation on the millage today?
You can if you want.
We were supposed to, but we were supposed to all have hard copies so that we could look at it. We don't have that.
We can do it next Tuesday too.
Okay.
We'll do it next Tuesday.
We put it on as a placeholder so we weren't sure.
Okay. I thought it was gonna be ready today. I thought there was gonna be hard
When
We're
I
copies.
being
talked
on
to him-
vacation.
When I talked to him yesterday, he was planning on zooming in for the presentation today. But being that he's on vacation and it's such a nice day, I guess I couldn't really blame him if he forgot.
Well, the budget part's more important anyway. And if we
We
can
can
get
do
through
it
some of
next,
it so Tim can.
Yeah, we
Some
can
written.
do it next Tuesday.
And at this point, we're down to final edits of that presentation too, so. it should be-
Yeah, I know he did make the changes that were suggested out of the meeting,
Okay,
and it's pretty much the same presentation.
okay.
Okay, next
Alright.
Tuesday.
We'll scrap that, put it on the next agenda.
You will pass that on to him, John?
Yes.
Add rec committee millage presentation discussion to agenda. Okay. Well, let's get into the general fund. Does everybody have their books or the budget, one or the other, that you can follow along? I don't know if you had a chance to hopefully make some edits or questions. And I think as thorough as John and I went through this, I would bet that if we just go through it almost line by line, it'll answer a lot of your questions if you have any, if you're willing to do that. And we got a few more answers even this morning. I don't think we had any more for Lois right now, do we?
Not at the moment, no. I think she's answered most of the preliminary questions we had, so it's a matter of
Just
going through this budget the way we did,
Okay,
addressing some of the tweaks that we think we probably should make that we already discovered.
yep, some
And
numbers will have to change.
I brought actually a duplicate copy of the spreadsheet that you have printed out in front of you that I intend to be updating as we go, so we know what the impact is of any proposed changes we talk about here. We might not be able to do all of them if there's anything related to advanced calculations of wages, that kind of thing. We know the staff wage and benefit numbers are pretty much dialed in except for the health insurance rate premium increase. We budgeted, I believe, 5%. We know the statewide average is going to be 3%. We just don't know what ours is going to be. So it's a matter of where those numbers end up beyond contract relative to non-staff issues. So appointed committees, elected officials, that kind of thing. So if there's going to be any changes there, we might have to do some additional calculations.
Louis, if you hear something that doesn't sound right, please stop us, okay?
There was discussion on a 10% increase in hospitalization. That's what I was going for. Are we back down? to-
Okay, so that might be the number that was budgeted, but we
Okay.
think the statewide average is going to be lower than that. We just don't know where the UP is, much less us,
But we're
in that average.
looking at this, it looks like almost like a 10% budget amount in here.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So
10% sounds right. I'm pretty sure that's what I put in the public works budgets early on. But we won't know that final number until November, likely.
Okay, let's look at revenues, general fund.
We're in, going through the miscellaneous and back to general fund.
Let's just go to general fund. Start, I think this will be easier if we just go right through it. I'm gonna kind of just go to what we know is either wrong or questionable. Taxes, there's not much we can do about that. Regular Lost Creek. Should have brought my ruler. Commercial forest, no change. Swamp tax. We get down to summer tax reimbursements. That should be 5,000 instead of 500.
That's for 2020.
The estimate total.
Yep.
And the actual is 5595. I believe that's correct.
For this year, correct. So
Yes.
that's just missing a zero, that 500 number and the 2,000 estimate total.
So the 5,600 that we have recommended is kind of what we're going with.
Yep, it's within $5 of what we've received this year to date.
Okay, so if you're tallying that and you want to change that, that's what need to be changed. Estimate on penalties, property tax, no change on that. License and permits, state grants, because we do get that tap.
While we're on that subject, the TAP grant, the $200,000 budget that was estimated included no contingency. So we received a call from the program administrator or a communication of some sort. I was copied on it from Rob Turbo. Basically, they're asking, do we want to include a 15% contingency on the budget so that if it goes over, we're only responsible for 20% of what goes over. If it goes over at all without the contingency, then we're on the hook for all of it. So say the budget comes, or the bid price comes in at 210,000. Without a contingency in there, we would be on the hook for everything over 200 if we choose to go forward with the project. If you put the contingency in there, we're only on the hook for 20% of it, so it'd be 2,000 instead of 10,000. And the 15% max would equal 30,000, which means 20% on a 15% contingency would be $6,000, which we've already pulled some hair finding the 40,000. Do we want to commit to another 6? I should be careful with that word commit though, because we're not committing to anything. We're agreeing that if it does go over, we would cover 20% of that contingency if it does. Assuming the project happens. So you're obviously not able to make any decisions today. I wanted you to be aware of that, something to think about. I know where you stand on some of this stuff. I know exactly where next year's general fund budget is looking. It's not great. So I guess that's something everyone needs to be thinking about. Are we going to dig for that extra 6,000 in the event we need it if it went to that maximum of contingency? So
Should we keep in the back of our mind 6,000 or 10,000?
I think that's
Just
probably a safe
till we get
idea.
through this?
I would hate to see a project like that where we're spending 20 cents on the dollar for almost, well, not quite $250,000, $200,000 project. I hate to see it go to waste over a small contingency if that's what it was. That being said, we just need to keep that in mind and determine if it's something that we even think we can afford at this time.
But we have to make that decision at a point in time in the future.
In the future, correct. So it wouldn't be committing you to anything right now. It would just be limiting any liability if the project goes over budget. And that if it exceeds 15% over budget, then it's kind of a done project. It probably won't go forward without additional action. If it lands in that $200,000 to $230,000, then MDOT will likely go forward with it. We just don't want to be on the hook for the entire.
When do you need to advise them about adding the contingency to the bid?
He said if we took action at the first meeting in October, that would be acceptable. So
just a few weeks. Well, maybe we get through this and we'll see how much we have left because we've got things coming in and going out.
correct.
That's why he's kind of updating the spreadsheet because we don't know what the net result is.
And if everyone remembers, that 40,000 would be a loan from the solid waste fund. So it's a matter of, I think we've already reached the lower limit of where we're willing to go there.
Yes.
Yeah, I already
So,
said no more.
Is it a contingency item that you want to come up with in the general fund or find some other spot for it? But I don't know that we have too many other options available. So I guess that's what we need to keep in mind.
Okay. Keep that in
If
mind.
it's part of if you go ahead and add the contingency to the TAP grant, and then everything gets approved and it comes back and it's got 10% overrun on it, then we're on the hook for it then, or we still got to make a decision?
Once we get to that point, I think we would be, but I would want to make sure that MDOT is not going to authorize the project without us giving a final green light, getting to that point, knowing that we're an equal stakeholder to them.
I wouldn't jump in trying to think what MDOT's going to do.
That's
The
true.
rest of my question is if you don't put the contingency in the TAP grant and the estimate comes in at $210,000, is it automatically a no-go, or is it a go if you decide to cover the 10?
That one I think is in that gray area because MDOT generally, if they go over budget within what their normal contingency limits are, and I think it's 10 or 20%. I don't know exactly what their number is. They will typically move forward with the project because when they do their budgeting, they keep a contingency account somewhere else that's supposed to cover projects that go over budget. I don't know that we have that kind of bank account sitting around, so.
So you're saying after October would be the time to do it?
I think the first October meeting, I will have one more conversation with Rob to figure out what the impacts are at what timelines to make sure that I give you good enough information to determine if I can even recommend agreeing to that. We might just have to draw a line in the sand and say, if we can't do a $200,000 project, we're done. But backing away from that 80 cents on the dollar would be tough, I know that.
But much rather be on the hook for 6,000 than, you know.
Then up to 30,000.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like an insurance policy.
Yep. And, you know, most projects of this magnitude have some sort of contingency in it at this point for various unknowns. And the further you get along in the process, the smaller that contingency becomes because you've identified as many unknowns as you can. So.
Okay, that'll come back to us then. A little bit of a difference, well, through June on the community stability. It's not gonna change too much. It's actual. State revenue sharing. How locked in is this? Is this pretty definite?
This was their projection as of August
So it's still a
24th.
projection.
So it's been updated based on the latest sales tax revenues they had. And it's an improvement over the last one,
Mhm.
but it's still not as good as what was originally estimated for this year, as you can see.
So that's kind of a wild card.
Correct.
Zoning permits.
It won't be any less than that at this point in time.
Unless this whole COVID situation completely shuts down the economy between now and the end of their next
But they're
fiscal year.
figuring the sales tax, prior sales tax. Not in what's coming in the future. What you're talking about now is what's happened in the last quarter of that.
Isn't their year in October?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah, so it might be.
Starting
until
in
now.
October will be another
Right.
time, but the dollars they're talking about now is committed, as far as I'm,
Yeah, so
my
it should be
understanding of
okay.
that.
Well, this number comes right from the state treasuries, and I don't think I brought that copy with me. but-
It's online.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep, that's where I got it.
Okay. Zoning permits, that's an extrapolated number. Services rendered. Community center, we put in 1,000, we'll see what happens. Lions Field, that's kind of iffy too. Interest, that seems,
That interest, I always look at that.
yeah, that could be higher. Who knows? And then other revenue, sale of assets, we didn't know what that was, it's the Jeep.
Right, so Brandy had put 910 in here for next year. I don't think we have another Jeep to sell. So I think at this point, I would prefer to just zero that one out under my recommendation. So that would be $910 less in revenue. And I just changed that to zero in the current
Are we,
spreadsheet I'm working from.
are we gonna be selling the other car this year? Getting-
Not this year.
Next year.
2021, yes, we would.
Yeah.
So actually, that would generate more than $910.
It will, so
Um,
Kind of base it
Selling
on
what,
the
Randy?
book.
sell
The Impala.
our Impala, because we'll be getting the Charger for here.
Okay.
Yeah.
We usually start at 4,000 to 5,000 as minimum
Right,
bid
we
for that.
could
so-
throw 4,000 in there. Good catch, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, because we are getting another patrol vehicle this year, or this coming year.
So you're saying putting in,
You could guess
How much?
4,000 then if that's.
Well, that's the minimum we ask, so
Okay,
4,000.
if we get more than that, it's better.
you say 4 or 5?
for
Okay, grants, we don't know about. Contributions, we don't know about. Reimbursements. Okay, the franchise fee, John's kind of recommending we go down to 60.
Correct. Based on some numbers that Lois calculated this morning, this year's cable TV franchise fees would total just over 63,000. So if we budget 60, that should be a conservative number, assuming cable doesn't go completely bankrupt in a year, which I highly doubt would happen. So that drops us 5,000 in the revenue, but I think it's probably a more conservative number.
Safer.
Yep.
And then long-term debt, that's expected. Fires, the loan payment on the building. Liquor, whatever.
That liquor number is based on revenue 2020 fiscal year to date. So we believe we'll at least get that amount again next year. So it's a reduction over last year's projection for revenue, but it's an increase over Randy's initial.
So you want to leave it at 7620 then?
7225,
You want to leave it there?
correct. And that's what we have shown as an expenditure in the liquor law enforcement account fund.
They're saying liquor is up anyway, liquor sales are up with COVID.
Mhm.
We do better. DDA, nothing anticipated, wastewater's 10,000.
So that $10,000 transfer from wastewater, just so everyone's aware, in my past, direct transfers from enterprise funds have been frowned upon very heavily by USDA, rural development. So any payments in lieu of taxes or direct transfers from enterprise funds to the general fund will be a red flag if we ever go after funding from that organization. My plan is over the course of 2021 to work with Lois to eliminate this transfer, but make up for it with an equivalent percentage of salary and benefit costs directly associated with the amount of time that she actually spends on water and sewer a year. Now, this is a first, so we have to guess again, right? Anytime you make these changes in the budget, you have to guess where you're going to be the first year. And then it kind of works itself out over time where you either adjust up or down. But the goal is to keep the net effect the same. We're just going to eliminate the transfer from wastewater and charge additional administrative costs via salary and fringe benefits.
You're redoing the description.
Yep.
Maybe what amounts to.
It's a shuffling of where the revenue actually shows up. But I think it's the right thing to do.
If you remember, a few times we've had a chance to go out for different bonding or loans. We kind of steered away from USDA, but according to John, it's not as volatile as Randy kind of led us to believe, because there are different avenues that we can pursue besides just the one standard grant. Big Bay just did a USDA loan and they got really good rates. And Randy had said before when we had done some of these that they were way in excess of the revolving fund. They may have been for that particular project. So USDA is not the bad guy in the room that I thought originally. So
It really depends on what you're going after.
right, and like you said, there are a lot more opportunities there. I thought it was just one grant and that's it, or one
Yeah.
loan.
If you don't do it, that'd be used against you when you apply.
Right, if we
So it's
ever
just
consider
protecting
going
us.
that way, they will make us fix this before they even consider an application from us, whether it's for equipment, facilities, water, sewer, it doesn't matter. if you have direct transfers from those enterprise funds to your general fund, they will make you get rid of it before they consider an application.
So you're talking about fixing that in the 2021 budget?
Fix it ahead of time.
Correct. I want this number to stay here for now, knowing that we have to eliminate it over the course of next year so that when we go through the 2022 budget, you won't see a transfer anymore.
Okay, so
There will be,
it'll be eliminated in 2022 budget.
correct, there will actually be $10,000 less in expenses, plus or minus, because that number will end up showing up in wastewater, and I think we need to include it in water. So whether it's split 50-50 or the number ends up being something a little bit different depending on which account you spend
The
more
months
time
of the
on.
employee expenses, really what amounts
It would be direct cost, correct.
direct costs.
Yep. Right now, we're just estimating it and we're only hitting one enterprise fund. If we do it in actual wages and benefits throughout the year, both of them get impacted, I would think about equally. And now is the time to do it because we're entering a year where we're not proposing rate increases. And we're trying to run a really tight budget in both of them. If we can find a way to make that happen where it doesn't trigger a rate increase, the change has been made and it should remain permanent at that point.
Okay,
It is a legitimate cost. I think Lois would probably tell you that a good percentage of her time is spent on water and sewer activities.
You're just defining how the dollars are going to be spent.
Correct.
so can you give us a number, a guesstimate?
I think Lois and I would have to sit down and try to estimate how
No,
many,
sorry.
what percentage
I
of.
meant the total revenue.
Oh, yeah, with those changes, you have $2,505,483. We're at 2,503,573. So it's about a $2,000 net difference,
So far.
$2,090 less based on those changes.
Okay, let's get to the second page. Did anybody have any of their own questions on
1 second here.
revenue first?
Okay, we got that, we reduced the franchise fee to 60,000. That's good.
2503 what?
2,503,573. Which is about a $50,000 increase in total revenues over 2020.
So that's revenue sharing.
That's the total, yeah.
Okay, let's, we might as well talk about salary and wages now, because it'll affect the next 5 or so accounts. We've gone back and forth and on salary and wage increases for all of our boards and committees that would qualify for income, for salaries. John and I have chewed on this because Randy and I have even voted a couple times saying, and Dave did too in the last one, that these wage increases should be consistent for the board, for our committees. We need to have these in place, not for us specifically, but for future boards, and have a plan in place. And what John and I are kind of recommending is that we go from somewhere between 1.5% to 2.5% across the board every year for the board, DDA, zoning board, planning commission, elections,
All appointed and elected officials.
right? So that every board can have that. I mean, obviously, we can't commit future boards. They can change it, take it away, lower it, raise it, whatever. So all we're recommending is that we have something in place for next year. And whatever that number becomes, it's up to us. It doesn't make any difference. We just thought somewhere around 2% would be reasonable.
2% is a nice number.
I think that you should consider it for your election officials too, so you don't have to do that big bump again.
Not in 20, we'll do that in 2022.
Sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. So thoughts on that? We can't, make any decisions,
Isn't the,
no motions and stuff now, but
Wouldn't 2.5% be in line with the minimum
we
for
kind
the rest of the employees?
we kind of look
For
for
the
that.
administrative staff, yes.
Yeah, because
So
that's
that's
their
true.
bottom. That's their, I was gonna say ceiling, that's.
It
their
might,
bottom.
it would only be my opinion that we keep it consistent so that you can, this is what we do across the board.
I'm not opposed to that one bit. I think it's fair. These volunteer positions, it's getting harder and harder to find people to
Mhm.
step up, right? I don't think most people volunteer for the pay, but if there's a little bit of benefit on the back end, I think it helps.
I think that even should go for the fire department. Volunteers, 2.5% would be okay with them too. What do you think, Dan?
Oh, I'm all for that, yes. We've generally done with AFSMI.
Oh,
We
yeah.
followed them, but I think the guys would like the 2.5 a little
Well, I
better.
think
Most
ASME
years,
would want
I
the
should
same
say.
thing too, yeah.
I think it would be on a year-to-year basis then.
Well, I think the more consistent you are, the easier it is to get full
Exactly.
support from everyone across the
Exactly.
It's so
board.
much easier to budget.
And if you adopt the same increases for, I don't want to say yourselves, because I know nobody in these positions want to do it for themselves. They want to do it for the history, right? They're moving forward. So if you're willing to do it for those that you're appointing to all these various committees, if you do it consistent from AFSMI to administrative to planning and zoning to rec committee,
Well, the rec doesn't get paid.
whoever it is that gets paid.
And nobody should question it. It's
Yeah.
across the board. That's the way it is. And I like that idea. I think
And,
it's
you
fair
know,
for everybody.
We could easily establish it this year because that's the low limit for the administrative staff. We will be entering contract negotiations with both units next year. So that would, whatever we do, we have to assume whatever ends up in those next contracts, we gotta be able to do it for everybody. And it really nails down what your costs will be moving forward. And it keeps everyone moving ahead at the same pace.
I mean, the board, what was it, 9 years before we got an increase? I say we collectively, not us.
Well, Lois has the history, but yeah, it was a.
That was a long time and I didn't think I'd get paid at all being a trustee. I didn't do it for that by any means, but like you said, it does make a difference if it's just an extra perk.
If
So
the
we wanna kind of
consensus
think about
is to
2.5.
include 2.5, I could actually go through and just crunch the numbers here. And then when we get through the rest of it, it will give us the total impact.
On the elections, it all depends on how the election comes out, if they get raised or not. I had to get.
2.5%?
Yeah,
Is that a
that's fine.
consensus?
Across the board, that's fine.
We can't make a
Anything else
motion, but
is
it's
hard
general
to-
consensus.
Just so everyone knows, for the 4 trustees, that amounts to about $100 a year.
Oh, my God.
And it's actually just
Oh,
under
wow.
$100.
I could buy a
Each.
6-pack.
$100 each.
No, they're supposed to give that to your wife.
For the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer, it's probably about 200 something.
We aren't gonna get rich
No,
by a long
we're
shot.
not doing this to get rich, are we?
I may get a tank of gas.
Yeah.
And then for the fire department people, it's not that much either, I would think, Dan. And other committees, it's not.
They would appreciate it.
The way we do it, we never know, we never see it anyways.
We've
Yeah,
always done it.
2.5% 's fine.
Huh?
It's worked out a little bit less than.
What we'll have to do then is
But it's always within
we adopt the budget.
cents, with under a dime difference.
Yeah.
I
So,
got
but yeah,
more
I guess we have to just wait
resolutions,
till
those
this
are
thing
the-
number.
Across the board.
That's right.
It makes it
our
easy.
salary,
Yeah.
that's what we'll do.
Perfect.
You have to do each one of them separately.
Yes. I can do the trustees collectively, but the officers you gotta do separately. And I have those from last time.
And it has to be done every year too.
Well, when you change it.
Yeah, when you change it.
I'm also gonna be asking.
This is be the second change in 12 years.
Yeah, it's not like it's huge, but it's something. I'll take 59,000 like Grand Lake Township did.
Yeah.
I think down was 57 for the treasurer. And then I looked up what the treasurer did.
Didn't do much.
No. There were 3 or 4 deputy treasurers doing all the work and that.
How many do you have? I'm just kidding. You don't have that many?
I have 1.
I know. I was just, yeah.
Same thing for the deputy clerk, right?
I did bump the deputy clerk up salary this year, so I would say no. But
Oh,
on the
okay.
future ones, we'll include that position.
Yeah.
The deputy treasurer is not considered because she's full-time staff.
Yeah.
She's staff. So
Deputy
there's
clerk went from $50 to I think $250.
because that's someone extra, but as far as the deputy treasurer is, because it's a full-time position, really, there's no, falls on the staff increases in that too. So
But the next time we do it, we'll include the deputy clerk in the salary increase. So 2.5% we agreed on, Lynn.
Did you? Good. Okay.
So it would make sense that we take formal action on that at the October meeting so that this doesn't get lost for future budget activities.
Okay.
I think we probably should do that. Take a formal motion that the compensation for elected appointed officials follow the administrative staff or something like that.
Do we want to say it that way?
Not necessarily.
I just think we set it every year, 2.5%. The board will set the percentage. That means we have to look at it every year.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's
I think
okay
that's
too.
a
I
little
mean,
better.
you don't even need to take formal action if that's what your plan is, but we have to remember
No,
to
I
do that
think
or
if we do,
it'll end up lagging behind again.
yeah, and it'll be defined as something in this budget that way. Because it would just change otherwise. Nobody would know why.
Right.
Better off to have some breadcrumbs.
On the agenda then for October.
I'm doing a tally here for Andrew. So paid board minis. I think we should list them till we get to the motion. That's fine. This is good for now. All right, did you get a bottom line on the board then? Did you?
Yeah, so the new bottom line for the work, what are we calling it?
Well, actually,
Work center?
We've got 2 questions on here yet. Cost center.
Oh,
So
cost center, yes.
let's
I'm
look at
working
those
on
2 questions.
understanding the definition, so I'll get there, I promise.
It's okay.
Okay, so the first question was the elected officials, so we added 2.5%, so that increases the 15,428 to 15,814, 15814. 15814.
where are you at?
Township board,
1012 page.
salary elected officials.
Oh, okay.
So that's that just under $400 increase for the trustees.
15184, John?
15814.
If we take, I know this is kind of hard to do because it's kind of iffy, but if we look at the June number for the elected officials and double it, and Lois will say, don't double it, don't do that. It's only 14,700. Lois, can you justify the 15,428 that you're estimating for this year? Is that just kind of a guesstimate, or was there already some kind of an increase in there? It's more what I'm concerned about. Would Randy have put an increase in?
No, that's the 15, it's the same as.
That's,
Same as
that's
last
real.
year.
Okay, so we can't just
And
do,
2019.
we can't do twice June. That's what I wanted to make sure. Okay,
It's very possible that there's one meeting not recorded in there.
Yeah, could be. something.
Actually, one of the people on the board gets paid with the firefighters and not at the end of the month.
Mess it up.
So that's
I just get one check.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just want to
Unless I
make sure.
get two checks.
So much lower.
You could go with no checks.
I could do that too, yeah. Or I should say, I don't get a check, it's just a direct deposit, so.
Okay, the changes, or I mean, the supplies, contracted services, dues, those are all pretty non-changing. Now we get down to travel and conference, here's another thing we'd like you to consider. Two things, actually. First of all, we're thinking about the COVID situation, what might happen next year, whether we'll be able to do any conferences or not. The first part of the question is, how about if we consider $100 flat per board member for training per year? And then the second side of that question is MTA has expanded their training availability and package price and what they're offering to a very nominal fee, I think, that would be able to cover the whole township. I mean, not the residents, us, the board and the staff.
And committee members.
Yeah, true. So the first part of the question being, in this case, there's $100 in travel and conference for the board, which falls to the trustees. So we would bump this to 400. So each of you has $100 to spend on training, travel and conference. And that could be one of the local ones too. I was gonna say UpCap, I can't think of. At the arena, whatever that is, because that's usually like 30 or 40 bucks.
That's on the road,
Yeah.
on the road conference.
So anyway, this $100 would change for the trustees to $400, so each would have $100. Mine is something, well, we can get into each one and talk about them because all the numbers are different. Mine's like 400, so I would go down to 100. But we discovered today, and we talked about it a couple times, MTA's blanket training that they have now is $4,000 per person, internet and all these conferences. They've reduced it to $1,900 for the whole township for the year. So we could, Dan could go in and do a fire thing. Dan could go in and do a fire thing. Lois could do an accounting updates, QuickBooks. John could check employee management. I could look at supervisor assessing. One blanket fee, $1,900 a year. And whether we have this travel and conference besides is kind of up to you.
Regardless of how many goes?
Yeah.
It would be online at your own convenience.
Okay, all right.
Now
And
they
there's-
do have
there's
special ones though.
specific courses. Not all of their training is included in this, but there's some specific ones from planning, zoning to,
Fire was one.
yeah, there are probably,
DDA be covered. Board of review, yeah, DDA was in there.
there's at least one class for just about every function, if not more.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably a good bang for the buck at $1,900. The premium pass is what it's called. It's all of the training of all three of the tiers they have.
So we could either take the travel and conference out for this budget or leave the $100 in there for each one of us and do the 1,900 as extra, and we could even divide it up among all the different venues if we had to, the different departments. The amount of money isn't so much what we need to worry about today as far as splitting it up. I'm thinking your thoughts. I'm looking for what you think would be the best way to do it. And we don't have to decide today either. We think about it, talk about it at the next meeting. But
Probably
since-
leave it in there because for $100, if you have that local one, but it won't cover.
That's
When
true.
we have it at Northern or we go somewhere else, that's not covered for it, so you might
Yes,
want to just leave it in
That's a
there.
good idea. So we could just leave that 100 in there. So the expense that you'd have to think about would be the 1,900 at some point. But if you need more information or we get more, you can get on the MTA website and look at it. That's how I found it. And it said, and then John dug and he said, well, it's 4,000. It had gone down to 19. And that's for everybody. It's like, wow. And all you have to do is just, I mean, y'all could come in here, say the planning department wanted to do one. They could just all come in here or go in an office, plug it in for an hour or whatever it is, hour and a half. It's like a no-brainer. So I think that would be a plus.
I
So
think so.
keep that in the back of your mind. And if you think the 100 would be enough, we can update that as we go through each cost center. Printing and publishing. I don't know, we've got 1,000 in there. That's about what it averages the last 4 years. And miscellaneous. John, you want to talk about the miscellaneous?
Okay, so I think Lois might be able to help me on this one, that 52,947 that was budgeted for this year. I believe Randy had designated that as one-time payouts, but Lois has used it to cover a couple of budget amendments this year.
Yeah, actually Randy put the health insurance increase in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so the health insurance increase is what went in there. I changed it to something that's a little bit more consistent with what we see historically in that line. It will cover whatever odds and ends we come across from a board perspective that doesn't qualify as any of the other options in that sub-account.
The board doesn't have those kinds of expenses typically, so,
Right.
you know, $200 or $300 is not enough. So the 52, does it stay in the budget paperwork for this year, Lois, or is it already out of there?
It's already out there.
Okay.
the budget.
So when we get our next updated budget, we'll be on there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's already on there. Yeah.
So that's been distributed amongst all of the various
Yeah.
parts of the budget.
Okay.
Okay.
Just a question, Lynn, on
Yeah.
these cost centers, I mean, I guess maybe just if we have any questions, I don't know if it go line by line. It's gonna take us all day if we do that.
Yeah, most of the rest, like the manager and
It's
stuff,
almost gone an hour.
well, we started late.
Not that way.
I do have a comment. When
Sure.
You talk about the wage increases, we will have to increase Social Security
Yeah.
adjustment also.
Yeah, that's kind of what John said at the beginning, even though we talk about that, those will all go up. Professional services, 2 answers there, 25,000. Did we decide this morning to leave it there? Recommend?
I think that's more a question of what the board wants to do at this point. 25,000 is kind of the number that's been budgeted on an annual basis for any type of engineering services that are related to general fund activities. The things that I can imagine coming up in 2021 that would be associated with general fund expenditures might be the building and grounds space that we've been talking about off and on. Whether or not that's a priority for next year, I guess can be argued back and forth. If we were to hire, not necessarily an engineer, maybe an architect to do some mock-up renderings of what we might be able to do with the space we have to provide the storage and garage space we need. So we don't have to even consider that for next year. I think we've got plenty of other things we can be working on. But at the same time, we know that's an issue that we're going to have to deal with sooner than later based on the space issues that we have. So,
Well, some of that will come up in strategic planning, and we're definitely going to do it in 21, so we can kind of address it then. But that's what that's for.
so that is a good placeholder. And if we don't spend it, it just goes back into the fund balance.
We may
But
need
if
it on
you're
the
looking to
tribunal.
scrounge up some funds, that might be a place to do it where you cut that down to 10, 15,000. And then we have to realize throughout the year that if we're going to acquire the services of a professional, that's what we're limiting ourselves to.
And that's what I was telling you that the board has been trying to get to all along. I was telling you this morning. We seem to want to be able to say, we have this much money, we want to take 5,000 out, we want to add 20,000 to put it for this project or whatever. We want to be able to do that. And that's why I kind of, Randy, I'm spending a little more time because the budget's tight, but we have money in here either for tribunal or engineering or those kinds of services. Because we don't know, there's too many unknowns. Okay, accounting services, that's the actual audit cost. John plugged that in, I guess, when he got it from Lois, 4,700. Supervisor, and we go to 2.5%, we do that increase and make me $100 for my travel and conference. That makes sense so
Yep.
far. And then township manager,
Your social security and workman's comp will
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
slightly.
Yeah.
And I'm highlighting those wherever we're adding the 2.5%, I am highlighting them to know that we got it. Lois will have to recalculate those.
yeah.
Or maybe I can figure out how to do it.
Give me the percentages, 7.5.
Delegate that.
So you can do it fast.
It would be good for me to know too, but I don't want to have too many hands in the budgets.
When you see, John,
A meeting and that depends on if you're going for water, sewer, do you take that out of the, would you take that out of their account?
Correct. If it's public works related, I would use their education budget. And of course, I would work with Lenny to make sure I'm not jeopardizing the
Yes.
budget for the education of the guys that need it.
Yeah, 'cause they need to update their certificates
Yep.
and stuff too.
And I'm trying to maintain my certificate as well, so that's the key. I need to get a couple of credits every year.
Okay, we move to the clerk. We've got a couple questions on that one. The wage would bump up to 2.5, or up by 2.5. And then we didn't know the travel and conference, if that's, you've got 2,000 in there. That,
Well, usually I put that much in there if I was gonna go to a conference, but I'm not going to this year. So that's probably gonna be reduced to $0 or $100.
should we put
You
100?
want
Yeah, so-
100?
So we'll reduce that 2,000 to 100. And then we can actually, on the education and training, probably reduce that to 100 also. That's
Now,
correct.
you do have full-time staff under there. Do we have to be a little bit careful?
Well, I don't know, Lois doesn't go too much to very
I
many.
don't see.
I would say leave it in there for a time being, because you don't know what's gonna happen.
So it'll be 500 in there for
500.
training, education training.
Okay.
But you can take the travel and conference down to 100.
Done. Thank you.
Okay.
So that's 1,900 more for you guys to spend.
No,
Isn't
not for
that the
them, for
number?
us, for
That's the
us.
premium pass, $1,900.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
You just paid for it. All right, board of review, so that would go up 2.5%.
Mhm.
Well, on the board of review, they have to have some training next year. Otherwise, they can't be on the board of review.
That's true too. Well, that'll cover. Board of review was one of the ones that is in this package for 1,900. Yep,
Okay,
yep, and DDA, because I was surprised. Assessing everything.
because they all have to set in on those sessions then to get that certificate.
What we could verify though is if those aren't the special classes.
There's probably a specific training they have to attend in order
That's
to.
it.
I'll check on that, because that way, if we need to put a travel and conference in that account, or training, or whatever we want to call it, I'll find out.
Because note I have must have training or cannot serve,
Mhm,
period.
that's true. Okay,
Just so everyone knows, I threw a number of 500 in there for now. Once we figure out what that training has to be, we can dial that in a little bit.
okay. All right, treasurer, 2.5, and then any upkeep, up charges.
I think you go all the way down to travel and conference. I was looking forward to it, but I don't think we can afford it this year.
Yours will go to 100 too.
If not, I'll come begging and that.
That's okay. BSA apparently is the computer services for 1,000. Excuse me, we were talking about making it 500.
Yeah, based on where Lois said we are, and you look at that trend, if we cut that in half to 500, we will still be able to cover that portion of the BSNA software. So we'll cut that number in half and hope that there isn't another software package that has to be added in there.
Or unless, Ernie, you know something different.
No, I don't.
Well, the trend is there too, so
Yeah,
we're just slowly approaching 400, so 500 number would be conservative.
okay. I think that one's okay then. I didn't have any other questions in there. We can go to the assessor. We did get an answer on,
Yeah, so the one question we had was contract service. It's been there since 2015, and that was an Apex contract where they did all. So Dulcie did say we can zero that one out for next year.
so Ernie's got 12,000 more to spend. Computer services looks like it, so go ahead.
On the assessing, there's also something, the assessing and the treasurer, something that, what data have to make all available. So they have to have something special that the state is coming out with now too, so. I don't remember what it was. This was months ago.
So I need to just ask Dulcie.
We'll probably have to, something new coming out in that too. So
She is available if we need to ask her a
Yeah.
question. This is a new requirement from Treasury.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Okay.
This is per the state. And it's supposed to be online too.
Okay, I wonder if MTA covers any of that or not.
I jotted these down at a meeting real quick, trying to get something down, and sometimes I can't read my writing when I write that fast. Can't read it anyway, but
Are you gonna ask her to come in? And then we can hit her for travel and conference too. Education and training. Looks like that has to stay. And we don't need to do anything with elections, right, Randy?
Not unless there's a special one scheduled.
Okay.
Lynn, did you say something about travel and conference you're gonna change?
He's gonna try to get Dulcie.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't mean to skip
No.
ahead, but I can
Went
just
to
run in
voicemail.
there. Grab her. She did give me some information about the tribunal that we're.
Looks like we lost Showlander, didn't we?
Yeah.
I should have told him that he was at the end of the budget.
He'd have to line up
We
right.
could have probably
Started with him.
started with them. Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
there's one line in the budget.
repository.
We took that out.
So now Ernie had mentioned that there's new requirements for
There's some
assessment.
kind of special sessions or training is supposed to become this year.
For the assessors reform,
For assessors, treasurers, whatever it is. I wrote it down in a meeting real quick in that, so I,
my training is usually covered by the state, so I'm no cost to the township for my continuing education hours. For any new courses that they'd be referring to may have to do with the assessing reform that goes into effect December 31st of 2020. Every year we're required to have so many hours for our continuing education renewal, and currently it's 16 hours.
So you've got to do at least 2 days of training per year.
But that's on us and not the state to cover? Is that?
It
that
would be
part
on
of-
you, it's just I get it for free. So that it's not a charge to the township. If the state were no longer to offer classes in the UP where I'd be the instructor, then it would be a cost that would come to the township, because then I'd have to attend day seminars to get it. But as of right now, we're covered through 2021 on my continuing education.
So we've got 3,500 in travel and conference for you, and then 2,000 for education and training.
That would have only been if, when we had spoke with Randy, he had said leave it in for now because depending on what happens with COVID, it's the networking and assessing when we go to an in-person school where it's the nice, we're talking about the payment in lieu of taxes. That's where you find another municipality and what they did. So a lot of times, some of the directions we get that save our legal expenses are because another township already bought it and is willing to share us their situation. But if it's something, and Janelle and I have talked about it, we're totally aware that this is gonna be an uncharted year coming up, and even into the 21, that if that needs to go away, we'll figure out a way to take classes locally through the UPAA and just deal with trying to reach out. And so it was gonna be to the wish of the board, I guess.
Well,
We were told to leave it in there, so we did.
Yeah, we can leave it there until we know more.
I think the biggest thing is anytime you have an employee with certifications that need renewal credits,
Make sure
you
they-
can't cut that education budget, because if the option is available and you can't
It's a
afford to go.
requirement for our jobs, so
Yeah.
it's not a,
You'll find the money, John.
we wish to take our classes, it's a requirement. But
Okay.
for example, that's why previous management had approved Janelle to be on the UP Assessors Association's board, because then her education becomes free. So there was a couple of things that we were encouraged to participate in, because then it was huge savings to the township as the end result for the free education. That's where she's at today. Free education, no charge for rooms, it was all covered by the board she's on,
They
so.
cover the expenses
Correct.
too?
Correct.
But we're paying her wages today.
Yes,
Okay.
because she's still at continuing education, you would anyway.
Sure,
Mhm.
okay. All right, then I think we leave it there, right?
Yeah, I think we
At least
better
till we
be
know
safe
more
to do that.
or something
When it
changes.
comes to certified positions, I think you need to keep that training funding there in the event they can't attend conferences.
It looks that's about, but we haven't spent anything this year neither, but
We'll know a lot more after January 1,
sure.
because there's a whole line of bulletins that'll get approved at the October meeting of the State Tax Commission that will really define what our expectations are going, because they operate on the state's fiscal year, so October 1 so that very first meeting that takes place in October is usually where we find out our inflation rate multiplier for taxable values. You know, what is our property tax calendar going to look like for the next year? What are some of the procedural changes? And if we're seeing, and I know this really isn't probably part of the meeting, but to give you an idea, we're seeing that there's so many municipalities that are not exercising in-person training, that they're developing a lot more virtual classes to meet that requirement, and they may say we can get all of it virtually instead of in person. So we're waiting to hear what the decision is after the meeting.
My recommendation was would be to leave those budgets as is
I think so too.
for now.
It's too much unknown.
Okay, good,
Just
thanks.
because it's there doesn't mean you're gonna spend it, right? I mean, that's,
But it is if you need
It
it.
has to go through you anyway.
yeah, when it comes to that kind of stuff. If it's not affiliated with assessing and necessary training, it probably won't be approved.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, elections are good. Building and grounds. The only thing we had circled there was the repairs and maintenance. Do you want to talk about the snow bucket?
Yeah, so this new loader we purchased, we had already talked about coming into budget season, adding $5,000 to the budget to purchase a snow bucket, which is a light material bucket for the loader, the new loader. That way you can scoop up large quantities of snow and move it instead of small quantities of snow. The bucket that came with it is designed for, you get where it is, 1.5 yards of dirt at a time. It's not a whole lot. It's a very small quantity relative to the quantity of snow that you can scoop at one time. My original plan was to include that $5,000 in the budget. I think we should hold off a winter to see how we do with the push box and the snow blower we have for it already, see if we even need it. That's going to be a pretty versatile machine set up that way. So
And this extra bucket was for the snow. That was the intent.
it would be to actually scoop snow and either pile it higher or move it further away from wherever it is. So kind of to increase efficiency.
John, what about the storage for these units? Like for all the stuff for building and grounds and different, do we have enough room in the public warehouse for these?
Right now, it's all stored at Public Works. The snow blower's in the back garage, the loader's in the main garage. And we just made a space for it, and that's where it will be based out of for now. And probably for a long time, because it's a shared unit anyway. The good news is we also have the backhoe over there, so we don't anticipate a lot of fighting between departments to use that machine. We know coming up in a month or two here what its primary use is going to be, and that's moving snow.
And that's when we were talking about that engineering professional services budget amount. We're gonna need more storage.
I was saying that under engineering was add on to what we have up there now somewhere. So,
Something.
and then
We're gonna
down the
have to
road,
have this-
combine the two departments into one department. So you have all your equipment in one and
Yeah, well, there's definitely something to be said about having all of those functions under one roof. They don't have to be, but they certainly can be.
Yeah.
It doesn't impact any budgets. It just means that two to three people, however many you have in that department at the time, report a little bit differently. So I don't think it's enough staff to add significant expectations to Lenny. I don't think I would have expected any significant expectations from myself as far as handling that extra workload of dealing with that staff, because they are pretty independent at this point. It would be more a matter of having a little more day-to-day oversight since they currently report to me. I think Lenny would have a little bit more time to help keep an eye on what things they're working on.
I was just looking at, when they need something, you have to go up to the warehouse and time waste and stuff like
Yeah.
that. That's why.
Honestly, the biggest issue I see is buildings and grounds being scattered all over the place. They're based out of the Cox Pump House. They have some stuff in the small garage behind Public
Exactly.
Works.
Yeah.
They have some stuff in Public Works. Yeah, that's.
They're two different departments, but when they go to work, they have different responsibilities, but all the merchandise or all the equipment is right there.
Yep.
Well, someday, Pete, hopefully we'll have a garage here with storage somewhere in this property, down the road, hopefully.
That's what we talked about.
And then that will help. We can get rid of those rental units down. Oh, man.
It's an interesting point you bring up, though. Dave, you'll remember this when we bought the loader. The plan to replace that in 15, 20 years is to charge ourselves the rental fee to operate. Every hour we operate it, calculated for the loader and blower attachment, $27.30 an hour to run it. So if it's used by Buildings and Grounds has to pay the equipment fund $27.30 an hour. Same with water, same with sewer, same with recreation.
Motor pool.
Correct. So that would be the other step of our plan going into next year. I was hoping we could do it this year, but we had too many changes, and that probably sounds like an excuse. It just didn't happen the way I hoped it would. Right now, I think we need to start planning to put those rental charges into the budget so that we can create the equipment replacement and maintenance fund for those revenues to go into, and then associated expenditures. So we have the loader, we have the backhoe, we could eventually add all of the Buildings and Grounds trucks, the public works trucks. So that becomes its own,
Mowers.
all of that equipment, right? Challenge is it is going to put additional burden on the general fund to pay those rental charges that it's not currently paying. So something we need to keep in mind, and it might have to be something that we phase in over time, just because we can't do it all at once overnight. We are keeping track of the hours in the backhoe and the loader right now. Those are the two most expensive pieces to replace. So, and we already have equipment replacement funds in water and sewer that will probably cover most of the fleet that we have over there. So those funds would have to cover the maintenance and replacement of those vehicles. That would probably have to be part of the seed money to get that fund going.
So
So
let's save that discussion for public.
I think
works.
that's a much bigger issue, but be aware of it, that we need to start planning for that. The first year, just for the loader, we would have to come up with about 12,500 so that we have the money set aside to replace it in 15 to 20 years.
But it can come out of each one of those funds.
Yeah,
too.
so recreation, Buildings and Grounds, water and sewer would each have about $3,100 to come up with.
Well, if you don't do that and you put it off this year, you're really just pushing the problem down the road, because sooner or later that stuff's gonna have to get replaced.
Right, and so far we're tracking the hours used on both of those two. So we'll be able to correct our budget even this year.
Well, the
For the
nice
hours.
thing about that system is it doesn't matter how many hours you use it, the money's gonna be there if you pay for it by the hour.
Right, and if you don't use it as many hours as you projected, hopefully the machine is gonna last that many more years anyway. For a machine that doesn't get used heavily, 20 years is very realistic. We're planning for 15 years on the loader, so,
And you're keeping it inside, which helps too.
right. The key is we'll have to make sure we wash it frequently in the winter once it gets covered in salt. For some reason that's.
Maybe I've been around too long. I can see that dollar sitting in the maintenance fund and the new board comes in and they need some dollars in that.
Well, that's a decision the board gets to make, right?
Yeah.
So if you all
If you're-
stay on
if
the
you're here,
board,
Ernie,
there's
you're
no
good with
problem.
one bone, if you're not- I know it wouldn't work.
It works, but only up to a point.
You don't pay it when they need to put an envelope and say, I'm sorry, you haven't paid your last bill, you can't have it.
Anyway, I wanted you to be aware of that. I know that was a little bit of a sidebar. It's something that will make our budgets look a little bit different moving forward. But I think even by the end of this year, Lois and I have to work on getting the rental lines in the 4 different Buildings and Grounds, recreation, water, and sewer.
That was a question I was coming up to on top of Pete's. That's not gonna be in the 2021 budget.
I think it needs to be, even though it's not current.
Yeah.
So we need to assume another, call it $6,300 in expenses for equipment rentals.
And then the idea is to slowly move all the equipment into the same, to the funder department.
I think it needs to be a department that actually has its own fund.
Right.
Well, Randy had suggested having a fleet account anyway. Fund.
Yeah, we
Just
had,
having them all in there. fire
John, I
department
talked
and
about that
everything.
before when we were looking at the ins and outs of having that loader instead of a smaller tractor.
Yeah. I think that's the only way to do it. Otherwise, you take all those rental fees and you put them into a earmarked fund, whatever you want to call
We like earmark, we've used that one.
it.
Yeah, probably.
Sounds better than a slush one.
It's hard to keep track of though, you're exactly right. It's better to have a separate fund
Right.
that is, the revenues are these rental fees. And probably the water and sewer fund are gonna have to put some of those funds that they already have in reserves into that to pay for the replacement of the pickup trucks that this fund would buy down the road.
Is the scheduled maintenance part of that, not just the replacement?
That's correct. Half of the cost is maintenance, half of it is replacement. So for the loader itself, $10 is the replacement cost, $10 is the maintenance cost per hour.
Okay, which brings me to another point that I think I already got answered, but there's a comment in there about buying a truck from the fire department when they replace
Let's get-
theirs.
We're not there yet,
Hang
Dave.
on, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I said, let's save this for public works.
It goes along with the whole.
It
You're
does,
right.
Yep.
yeah. Okay, are we good on R&M and vehicle then?
Yeah.
Because you want, did you mention something about the 5,000 for the?
We better get going or we'll never get done with this.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to this that you guys aren't aware of, that's just it.
We talked about the snow bucket and I'm not going to propose adding it at this time.
Okay. All right, so we can go to
General services admin,
community app. There's only a couple of changes there actually, or questions rather.
we need to back up to buildings and grounds, that 5,000 number for vehicle expense. It was actually left out of the 2020 budget.
That's what I was asking.
And I think we need to actually increase that to 10,000 based on historical expenses. You can see we're actually probably approaching 15,000 a year. We did just sink some money into the 1-ton dump truck. This would be one of those expenses that actually moves over to the equipment fund, and the rental rates are going to pay for that.
So I knew I wasn't premature when I brought that up.
You're 100% correct. In fact, that line number might actually be moved right into the rental one. So the vehicle expense goes to 0, but the rental goes to 5,000.
But you
On the
want
new, when you lay it out, the new one.
Correct. I think Lois and I could probably get that part done before you see the final general fund budget. Setting up the equipment fund might take a little bit more time. That could possibly take us into the new year, but we could be able to accommodate
Well,
that
if
through a
it was
budget.
set up that way, then a lot of these line items that are in the budget would just transfer over that equipment fund, right?
Right. Yeah, some of the revenues would transfer over, some of the
So there
expenses
wouldn't be
would
a,
transfer.
wouldn't be a big budget change, it'd just be a matter of moving things around.
In this particular case, if we actually leave that number 10,000, all of that equipment goes into the fund and becomes responsible for that department fund, whatever we're gonna call it. It ends up being almost a wash at the beginning.
Yeah, it's just gonna be a transfer of dollars.
Right. Now, keep in mind, we haven't talked rental rates for pickup trucks, 1-ton dump trucks, that kind of thing either. So you just have to
Pretty easy
run
to
through
figure
the
out, though, right?
same, it's a very easy spreadsheet. I can figure out what the replacement cost is and calculate it real quick. A pickup truck might be $10 an hour instead of 20.
Okay, can we move on?
Sure.
Okay. Unity. We had just questions on printing and publishing and vehicle expense. Otherwise,
Yeah, so Randy had estimated cutting those two lines in half versus what was budgeted for 2020.
React.
DNA. General.
General services, administration.
right.
So printing and publishing, which is line 900, and then vehicle expenses, which is 931. That vehicle expense is associated with operating the Impala, so fuel costs, that kind of stuff. He had cut that number to 500, and I think that was based on what we're seeing for this year being a downward trend from last year and the prior year. But this year is not a good
Not a good example.
measuring gauge. I think we need to focus more on what that long-term history is. And we look at 2017, we spent 2,200. So I bumped that number back up to 1,000. And then the printing and publishing, I bumped that up to 1,500 to match the current year, knowing that the prior year we were more than double that. So just trying to keep those numbers within the right range, so we don't have to do any budget amendments early in the year if we actually have a normal looking year. And that's really the only comments I had for general services.
So let me, unless somebody's got other questions about that, on the miscellaneous tax tribunal, Randy's got 60,000 in there to cover those that are pending. And Chelsea just told me when she came in, and I just forwarded you, you don't have your computers, email from Roger that I gave him a go ahead to settle it. The Odavero Peak Fitness building over here was in contention at the tribunal. And we had asked for 736,000 taxable value, and they came way down to 550. So we're kind of going to split it a little bit, and the difference is 186,000. And it's only going to cost the general fund $922. They had asked about going out for an appraisal, and they found out that it would cost them 10 grand to have it appraised. And that's when they came back and said, all right, what else can you do? They don't want to put that kind of money into a pole building. So we agreed and took some more of it off. So just the general fund then is $922.
They're pulling their documentation to the tribunal then?
No, they're not. No, they agreed to
So
settle. Yeah, I was gonna say come up to our amount.
And that stopped the tribunal.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
I think that's what Ernie was.
So it's only gonna cost us $922.
You've been doing quite a bit of that.
No
Several
appraisal.
times you've done that.
We don't have to do that.
It saves us money.
Lots of money.
It costs us money, but we're saving money.
Save some money too.
How long is that agreement just good for the year? You gotta revisit it every year.
Basically, yeah, he can go again next year if he wants to. And the other side of this too is that he waived the interest back 3 years. So
That's
we
good.
don't have to pay him.
Man, who are you dealing with?
Odavero,
Himself?
No,
probably his attorney, would be my guess. So I sent you Roger's note saying that we settled. The cost to the township, this is just the G&A, the administrative cost. You know, we have 4.9 some mills that we charge to function. That's $922 for that. So the fire department would be separate, Heritage Trail, the library, any of those, any of the county, we'll have to pay the counties back, but any of our millages, like our equipment millage and everything, it might be $20 or whatever. It'll be not as significant. This is the biggest amount. Yeah, yours is 2.8 mils. So it's not a huge, it's not as much as it could have been. So that's part of the 60,000 that we pay back. That would be, Randy just put it in here as miscellaneous just dump 60 in there. And then some of that was engineering too. He, some of that 25,000 he said was engineering. There might be 5 or 10 for the tribunal. All right, law enforcement, I bet we lost Tim.
We did.
This is why I should have told him we'd be toward the end, but I didn't know how much of the whole budget he wanted to hear about. Tim Cholander, lieutenant with the state police working with Upset, approached me a couple months ago and said that they've had a lot of activity in Marquette, or in the township. Upset has worked here and worked very hard. He didn't give us an example, and that's kind of what I was hoping. I could email him really quick. Let me do that. See if he wants to come back on, because I was really interested more in having him participate than us giving him information.
Right now, we're contributing $1,000 to Upset. Yeah.
Correct. So let me see, let's skip that for right now and see if he'll come back in. Street lighting, electricity, we're guessing is going to be up a little bit. And
Maybe a little bit more.
we don't have any.
So anytime it comes to power in our budgets this year, we heard VLP is projecting a 3% average decrease. The problem is most of the accounts we have probably won't land in that decrease. It'll probably end up being flat or a little increase. We don't know for sure. So we did project a slight increase in that.
Repair maintenance, we haven't done anything, but it's there if we need to. And same thing on street signs. A little bit.
And we spent almost the majority of our street sign budget in one purchase this year, just ordering the street name signs we needed to have adequate signs in inventory. So my guess is we'll probably do that again next year.
Jump to planning. So we got a 2.5% increase there. That'll change those numbers.
Yep.
Just for lighting, each one of those roundabouts cost us about between $350 and $400 a month. Each one. It varies month to month. I forget what I added up. How many thousands it is.
That because of the time they go on,
No, it's yeah.
the daylight,
They time it, yeah. Each one of them are billed separately.
each roundabout.
The one up by Myers, that's $400 and some dollars, and then it drops down to 300 some. All depends on the time of the year and stuff like that. You know, in the fall it gets darker. So, it was interesting.
You don't just play a flat fee for that?
No, all depends on usage, and each one of them are like that, all separate.
So those they actually have street light circuits on a meter pedestal. Same thing happened when they built the roundabouts in Michigan, because MDOT doesn't pay for street lighting other than on freeways. But you have to have lighting at roundabouts. So
I just found that interesting, because every place else we have streetlights, it's just a flat fee.
yeah, I think because of the way these are designed, they get their own separate meter. So you're actually paying the power bill.
So if we decide to put some kind of lighting in the corridor with this DDA MDOT project, it's going to be pretty significant.
Yeah.
We pay for it.
Yeah, we knew we would, but I didn't think it'd be that much.
Well, if we go along with it, well, I won't get into our street study, but
Anything that's fancier than a utility pole mounted Cobra arm would fall into this category of having its own separate meter.
Did you say you had to have lighting in roundabouts?
Correct.
here,
Because of all the added geometry.
That was part of the deal. Remember when we did the whole thing? We had to commit to that.
Yeah, it was 200,000 or something.
Yeah, we didn't know about it at the time when they
Yeah.
made the first presentation.
And we told
Yes.
them that repeatedly
Does that
too.
sound anything like the meter thing?
Surprise! Okay, I'm not seeing Tim yet.
You're like,
Okay.
oh boy.
Planning. Everything on the top will change from the salaries.
Yeah, so
Travel
the actual
expenses, we don't really
expenses
know.
are actually a net decrease of about $2,500 in their budget. So a lean request.
Travel and conference, we're gonna leave because some of that is gonna have to be ongoing education too. ZBA will get the 2.5%.
Yeah, otherwise there was no change there either.
Recreation,
So this is the other impact of that third employee, right? And it's what led to the millage question. The other part of it is the building and grounds. And the description associated with that third employee, you have to go back up to building and grounds to see it. That's where Randy put it. It's that third employee at 32,000 and change per year, which we are not currently paying because we haven't refilled that position.
so that was something John and I had to decide or figure out rather, with Lois's help too, is that third person in this budget? And it is.
It should be. Which is why you see an increase from 53.5 to 61.1. That would be recreation department's share of those three staff members and their benefits.
So if we're going to get the millage, this can drop. If we don't get it, we have a third person covered if we decide that we do want to go that direction. And it's been suggested that maybe we just get 2 part-timers too, so we don't have all the extra payroll costs and insurance, and most people that just want to do a little bit of.
Well, you can use part-timers on the ice rink
Rentals.
if we have
Yeah.
that going, and possibly some snow removal, depending on if they're qualified to run the equipment or not. You know, I think opening up this room and letting people in, and a lot of that stuff can be done by part-timer. You're not paying somebody overtime to go and lock up the ice rink.
Yeah.
And, I think that's crazy.
What's interesting is talking to the employees regarding the overtime that we have here. Most of them would rather not have overtime. They'd rather have their life when they leave here at the end of their shift. So if there's ways we can eliminate that, it actually is mutually beneficial. To an extent, there's still a cost involved. Can you do it with more affordable staffing, right? So.
Well, you can do electronic, you can shut lights off and lock doors and stuff like that too. With cameras and also in different areas, a lot of these businesses, they don't have somebody shutting the lights off. That's all done in computers.
Yeah, well, these lights will automatically shut off if there's no noise or movement after so much time. But the doors don't necessarily lock.
If you use a part-time employee and he uses a piece of equipment, they have to be able to use that equipment. That's an expense.
Right. We would not allow any employee to operate the equipment they haven't been properly trained to operate.
So when you go to save money by having a part-time employee do it, you have to think about it. You may have to train them.
There's still a lot of things that a part-time employee can do.
Well, there are. You're absolutely right. But when they step into a piece of equipment,
Absolutely. We're liable for them to use
you
that.
bet.
Yeah.
And you can get a really big lawsuit.
And another thing, if you want to rent this hall out at different townships and that, you rent the hall, they give them the key, they lock up, and then have the police department check it out after. I don't know if you ever want to consider that or not, but you don't have to pay somebody to be here.
Other things you can do is you pay somebody 2 hours per rental to open and close. So whoever rents it has to designate the hours they want it. At the end of that time, whoever's in charge of the rental comes and closes it up and makes sure the lights are turned off, everything's clean. Leaves a note on the rental slip, whether or not you're revoking the deposit, whatever, if it's left a mess. So that can be done fairly affordably.
I think there's some ways we can save some overtime expense.
Yeah.
Easily.
And the full-time staff is all for that, the majority of them. There's some that like it more than others, but most of the guys that I've talked to, and Amanda, I think would all say that they prefer to come and work their 8-hour shift, go home to their families, you know?
Occasionally, maybe you don't have to put in a little extra time, but
Well, and that's pretty much unavoidable,
yeah.
right? So anyway, those are the things we're looking at for next year, and I think the millage will help us decide a lot of that.
Yeah.
And even if it is a half a mil, we don't have to levy the whole thing. And maybe we don't levy it all if we can cover our expenses for what we've already budgeted. So I knew that was gonna be a time thing to talk about, so we've got stuff to chew on. So we're gonna leave that account the way it is, unless somebody's got some issues or questions.
Where you at now?
I'm gonna flip to insurance and bonds is the next one, capital. Those are pretty much gonna stay. And we were gonna ask Lois, weren't we, what the other was, or did you know, John, in capital last year?
Yeah, we had the capital other last year of $30,659, and I didn't have a chance to catch you to see if you could look up what that was. It wasn't in the original approved budget.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check on that. It's
Yeah.
possible it might have been some of the Lions field work.
That's what I think.
Fencing or something.
That's
Like
what
I
it
said.
Okay, just let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just so happened to stumble on the fact that there was no other approved in the original budget, but there ended up being the expense, so it had to be through budget amendment.
So let's talk vehicles now. Still don't have Tim back.
Vehicles, okay. So the first is the replacement police vehicle that we've been budgeting for 2 years. The amount that you see in there for this year is a little bit higher than normal. And that's because Randy recognized the need that need to have an all-wheel drive vehicle for township staff to drive, which means obviously we wouldn't see it for 2 years. But if we bought the SUV for the sheriff's department to use, that's then what staff would have to use in 2 years.
I feel that's a good idea.
It's one thing to have an all-wheel drive car, but to drive out to Forestville and all the way through to Harlow in a Charger probably isn't going to get you very far. Actually, I wouldn't even try and sprint, but anyway, that's definitely something that we need to look.
What did the sheriff's department say about that vehicle then?
I'm pretty sure they would support it. Number one, whoever's driving it will actually have a little elbow room. I don't know if you've seen some of these officers in these Chargers and Impalas, but they're kind of wedged in there like a sardine. Once you get all that equipment in there.
Moonsfoot, yeah, I came right to mind.
These guys are big.
Well, I got in that one and TV6 showed it, when we got, not this vehicle, the one before. I got in it and I'm not as big as these 6-foot guys. And I got in this way as if I were in the back seat and I could not.
That's because you're used to getting in with handcuffs on.
That's what
I
did that
Sorry.
So I could see what that would be like. And then I got in the front seat and there's no room. So.
The amount of equipment they have to squeeze in the cab of one vehicle is it's pretty incredible. I don't know how those big guys fit.
Even our pickup and stuff is tight in there with the computer and everything else.
Perfect for building the grounds.
That's the other part.
Yeah, finish the story.
So the second part of capital is buildings and grounds acquiring the 2005 3/4 ton from the fire department. And I saw that number 25,000. I thought, man, what kind of
It's a good price.
ripoff is going on here? And then we looked at Kelly Blue Book, and sure enough, that is the middle of the range for a private sale. So the trade-in is obviously a couple grand lower than that, but 25,000 is what we could get if we sold it as surplus.
What year is that?
It's a 2005, but it's got that 6.4.
6.4, yeah, it's the motor. The motor's like 22 grand
Good motor.
from what they say. But I'm not a mechanic, but that's
Right.
what they say.
I wish I had that in my
That's
truck.
what everybody does.
So I talked to Andy about this, and it was a conversation, based on a conversation that Andy had with Randy and Randy had with Dan. They weren't planning to replace their Silverado, and they like the truck because it's got that good diesel engine in it. But Buildings and Grounds is needing a heavier duty pickup for their secondary plowing because they've got the 1-ton dump truck. This would be a way to get them into another plow vehicle, a good reliable truck, without buying a brand new one. Fire department then would have to take the proceeds, selling it to Buildings and Grounds to buy themselves a new one. It's a little bit out of schedule for the fire department. That's the big kicker.
And budgeted for without going into our apparatus fund.
Is that vehicle big enough for plowing without any problems?
Oh, yeah. 3/4 ton is pretty much the standard plow vehicle these
Good
days.
size.
Is there already a plow
Sitting
on
right
that?
there.
Isn't there already a plow for that? No.
None of that one.
So that's the
So
only
there
other
wouldn't
thing
be
you got.
You can put the plow on it and we'll buy it.
Yeah. Give us the plow, we'll put it up. No, yeah. No, it doesn't.
So nobody has to decide right now, but that's what those numbers mean.
But it sounds like a win-win for both departments.
Probably. When I first saw that 25, I said,
Me too,
Dan,
well,
what's going on?
I told you I was given that number,
Mhm.
and that's when I said sold. And then I looked it up myself and said, it really is that. I was surprised myself.
And do any negotiating?
I was happy with 25. We wanted 28.5, but we settled for 25.
And how much plowing do you do over there?
Weekends mostly, because Buildings and Grounds, I
Johnson?
don't want to talk too much, but no, let's be honest, yeah, Buildings and Grounds, weekends. And it's not like when big snowstorms, I've had to call Andy in to get the big truck over there.
So we should get the truck.
I knew
Retail.
I know. That's why Pete, I didn't think that about it. I gotta be honest, but I didn't. I know, the Dave's ears perked up.
They're gonna pay into that equipment fund then?
That's
We
eventually
might
what
be doing our own plowing.
well, all of these things eventually
No,
will be
good catch.
capital purchases in the equipment fund, right?
Yeah.
So
You need to-
whether it shows up here under capital or equipment fund under capital, that's what the plan is for next year.
What would you get if you said, what would we be looking at?
A 21,
Same
3/4 ton.
three-quarter.
It'll be gas though. Diesel, $10,000
More.
11.
It's kept inside too.
Yeah, ours would, oh, definitely.
The theory was you always got them because they were better on maintenance, but the way they got them all garbaged up, maintenance is just.
That's what happened, you're right. That's why that 05. is
Tier 4
great one.
engines.
The last year, the good ones.
Okay,
Emissions.
on the debt service, not much we can do with that. So we want to
Lois
talk-
says we gotta keep paying our loan bills.
We want to look at through strategic planning next year, making some more loan payments from accounts like we did. We can do that too. But for right now, we can't do much with debts. Transfer out. We're gonna have to supplement the road because of the tax tribunal. We're gonna have to supplement the millage to the tune of 121,763.
So that number reflects doing a road project with the same budget we started with this year.
56,000.
Actually, maybe it's the same budget we ended with this year. Because we did increase that a little bit.
Ends up just right at 60 or
66,928. We started with 53 this year and went up to that 66,928.
But we were putting 50,000 in the roads every year.
Yeah, so, you know, this budget does propose that supplement of 121,763. To get to 66, we could reduce that supplement to go back to 50. It's a matter of what you want to focus on for roads, and knowing that 50,000 doesn't get you much anymore.
that was, the October project was to do the road, so evaluation and tour.
Yeah, because we're still required to do the basic project.
Yep.
We can't really cut that, can we?
No, we
Because
could
of
go back to
the
50
millage.
as the project size. And then shoot for that budget. But you may have to go back up to a number in the 66 range if it goes over like it did last year, right?
Well, the problem is, I think we took some stuff out of that last year because budget money wasn't there.
It was like an 80-something thousand dollar budget.
Yeah,
So you
so
gotta just eliminate the chip
Keep
seal.
doing that, it's just gonna, that
Can do that.
money we'll borrow and pay later, it's just gonna keep getting bigger and bigger.
Right. No matter what we do, this budget's gonna be tight. And I think if you make all the other budgets tight because of this, then we'll all feel the pinch. So you can focus on getting something within the general fund that's anything better than a balanced budget needs to be the focus. I think the first round that Randy sent, we had $3,000 net effect. As of right now, we're up to about 25, which is a really good day's work. You've been here 2 hours and you've gone from the start of the day was 17,821. We're now to 25,075. So I would say that that's been a pretty good effort.
Well, some of that's gonna get eaten up in wages though too.
Well, I calculated the 2.5%.
Yeah,
the
but I
only
mean,
thing
that's all the write-ups, all the add-ons, you know, the social security and Medicare and,
Okay, so that's gonna be a
Retirement,
couple
all that.
grand.
you know, and
Based
something
on-
for that.
But I think as far as roads, I think we have to continue on the track we've been on. Otherwise, we're gonna run into problems in the future.
Well, and that's, the idea was to get that done in
Maintenance.
October so we can get an engineering estimate on that. You really can't put it out for bid yet.
Mhm.
You get an engineer's estimate on. I think that was a problem last year. The engineer's estimate was quite a bit shy of what the actual bid came out.
Is it new PEA?
But there's a couple things that changed there. One was the cost of the oil costs and asphalt and all that, and everybody got tied up on jobs, and nobody wanted to do it.
I think the key is you need to bid it late in the year and give them the whole next season to do it. Because that gets it in their schedule early with the most flexibility to get it done.
Well, yeah, and that's what
Guaranteed
we
price.
shot for. If you could get a recommendation for the board by first part of November, they could actually bid it in December
Mhm.
and get it awarded by the end of the year.
Yep.
And you get a better price at it that way anyway. That's been the experience.
Right.
Appropriations, I still don't have Tim.
Yeah, so the biggest change, the only change you see there is the elimination of the conservation district. I guess that would be appropriation, because we have not paid them anything in the last several years. So there's an opportunity to take something that's been set aside for something specific and maybe move it over to upset. If you want to consider providing a little bit more. I know they get as much as 10,000 from other communities. There might be communities that have a little bit more going on than we do, but it doesn't matter where you are anymore. I know upset's pretty busy, so. Tim's not on. We may not get them back today, unfortunately.
Do you have any idea what he's looking for?
He just asked for more, and my recommendation to the board was gonna be 5,000.
Versus one?
And I wanted him to tell us what's been going on, because I've heard not only from him, not specifics, that's the problem, I wanted to get the story. But another officer too said the same thing, how Marquette Township's been busy. So I just thought that that would be, and Tim did tell me that they were getting 10,000 from somewhere else. And I thought, hey, I was surprised. We don't think much is going on, and I didn't think much was going on in the other community. That's probably true.
Well, it's not something that you hear that much of on TV. You hear certain areas a little bit west of us here that have got problems continuously.
Worse in Tilden Township right now is having a big problem.
You don't hear too much about upset what they're doing because it's kind of, smoky.
Well, I understand, but
It is. I rented them, from one of my rentals, and I didn't make any money on it, but they've got a lot of things going. They pull people from different areas.
they're good. I mean, I'm not disputing it at all, but I just, like Lynn, I didn't feel that we have that much of a problem in our township.
If nothing else, really, they need to be talking to us or the staff, to let us know what's happening in the community. To that end, I called the sheriff and asked him I called him first before I talked to Tim. And asked him to come actually to our next meeting, but he's booked up. So he's gonna come to the second meeting in October and give us an update. And I said, if you remember, we were gonna try to do this at least once a year and have him, but see, his county meetings are the same night.
Right.
That's the problem. So he can have somebody fill in his assistant, or whatever they call him, lieutenant or whatever, to represent him in.
I don't think he goes to that many county meetings anyhow.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's planning on coming to the second meeting of October. So if I can maybe Tim could come to the next meeting or something, I'll try to get back to him. And I don't know how much he would want to have in the public, like you say, but
They
for
do
us,
give updates in
Yeah.
public settings. I've seen it in other places.
They don't get specific.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I think everyone agrees they do good work. It's a matter of how much you can afford to.
Help reimburse him.
Mhm.
So that 25 number goes down to 20 if we put 19. If we put goes to 21. If we leave the 1,000 in there, add another 4. It changes it a little bit more.
I'm not feeling any strong leanings one way or the other.
What do you
From
say?
five?
To go to 5?
From 1.
Well, I guess a lot depends on how this all works out, where we are. If we have the 5, I'd love to give it away. I really would. And I can't think of a better source for it to go to.
Well, because it's a direct resident input.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
If it makes our community safer, so I don't have to go into my gun vault time soon and protect my property, then.
It's just like you're gonna pay for one way or the other. If you don't take care of the problem, it creates more problems.
Yeah.
With the appearance of your properties and just all that stuff.
It's a good thing. I really think it is.
We'll
If we
pencil
can
in the
afford it.
5. And see where it happens with the bottom line. Which kind of ties then into the last one, the appropriations, John. Because we were talking about our events, things are a little different. And even the safety nets at the rink, John was kind of suggesting maybe 7,500. Because there's really only one side that needs to be replaced yet, and it's on the warming side. So it's not, we've got the residents covered as far as being protected.
Yeah. Part of it is the roof of the warming building, and then there's a little bit on the southeast corner. And I don't remember if much of the northeast corner is netted yet or not.
You didn't net the northeast corner?
Probably not. I
They're
think
gonna go just
we
as well.
probably don't need to put any more net up. Where we put the net up was to protect private property. And then the public rights of way, cars going by on their end. So we're
And then
probably good on
There's
net.
some down around the end, but 85
Yes. Yeah, it's the kiddie park on the south end and the road on the north end.
If anything, the residents have asked for more, I don't know if I can be politically correct here. Well, even just for small children. And they, if you remember, some of you might have come to that open house type meeting we had, and the couple was saying to have some kind of a little separate section by the kiddie park for little kids and even some challenged kids and different games and things for them to play and pieces they can crawl on and stuff. So if anything, that would be maybe the next thing we could invest in. Instead of worrying about 12,000 for more netting on the rink, if we had excess funds, that would be a good place to put it. Because you got to figure we're not going to probably do too many events next year.
Well, let's hope
It's
we
hard to
are.
say. Well, at least Christmas, yeah.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, Pete, a lot of the cost for the events was radio advertising.
Mhm.
And that's a share for Todd because he did so much. He
Right.
brought all of his equipment and music and everything. So that's kind of a sharing thing, but depending on how much he wants to continue to do that, he's still a partner or something at the radio station or a part owner or whatever.
Yeah.
So he may still want to, try to contribute that way.
But there's other areas that we can, like free advertising and stuff like that. I mean, even though some people don't like to mind, a lot of people do, but wonder what's happening, that's in there, and then you have a bulletin, and you can do that, and you can do, posters and stuff.
Different things, yeah.
We got the internet, work on that, a lot of people are on that.
So we could possibly take 7,500 out of that budget, maybe even 10,000. I'm just gonna put a question mark unless somebody has.
You could
different
eliminate
number.
the safety net number altogether. Just know that if something else comes up that's important, you don't have the safety net money to use for it because it's not there.
Well, and we don't have any, if he's saying 5.5 for paths and 5 for beauty, we're not buying $5,000 worth of flowers. I don't know what. he was
Beautification.
thinking. Yeah,
I guess I don't know.
and 5,000 for paths, is that flowering? Like in the parks and.
Well, interestingly, we need to come up with 6,000 for our 15% contingency for the path. There's 5.5 right there. We could change that to 6, eliminate the safety net, you're at 1123.5. I don't know how you feel about that, but
What is the 5.5 ask for?
Yeah, that's what I said. I don't know if it's for.
I'm not sure.
Mhm.
maybe it's for
That'd be for
existing paths for various improvements. I'm not sure, but
Lois, do you have any idea? Or your discussions with them?
The only paths we're taking care of are the safety strips. Don't do any maintenance on them, just keep snow off them.
So pedestrian pathway maintenance.
Up here, down,
See the flowing in the
Alright.
winter time.
So is that'd be the snow blowing? one?
Yeah, it must be.
Would that be hours charged for that new blower?
Maybe.
well, that's certainly a possibility. That's not the 6,000 we needed.
Well, let me find out from Randy, or if you want. to call
Yeah,
him, doesn't matter.
He might have covered it in his memo.
You can see there was a lot in here that we wanted to, like Randy said, we started out kind of line by line just in case. You guys had questions, but
Yeah, that's
it's a very
pedestrian
tight budget.
pathway maintenance. That's got to be for the snow removal.
Maybe
So-
for the overtime on the weekend or whatever. Maybe.
I don't know if we would do that on the weekends or not.
Why would it come in here? Why wouldn't it be a building and ground? Isn't that still part? We don't segregate out the trails and parks.
Yeah, I don't know that we have any trail maintenance say we have to repave a section. I don't know that we have any of that planned right now.
Well, that's not even a That's not even the township expense. Repair those, are they?
Depends on where it is.
Safe routes to school probably is. Anything that we, Ontario probably not, Warner probably not. But safe routes to school, I would bet we own
So
that.
just this strip right here.
Commerce, Venture, Wright Street. Do I have that right? Yeah. Commerce from Warner. Venture from Commerce to Wright to the school.
But for that medium beautification at 5,000. I know that what they put in flowers in there, there's no $5,000 worth of flowers there at all.
We'll see what we can do on that.
So I'm wondering if he was planning on a little bit more there to cover roundabouts?
We can't plan anything on the roundabout, my understanding.
I don't think we can,
No.
if we wanted to.
Yeah, we have to have something. They don't want just dirt there. We have to have something. But,
Bushes or something.
yeah,
Isn't there something there now?
we're required.
There are plants in there.
Sort
They
of,
put
yeah.
some bushes. And then,
I thought when we were doing that, way back, when we were doing the roundabouts, that we paid for it, but they took care of what was supposed to go in there.
But no, we still have to maintain it or upkeep it.
Maintain it, but I don't think you can add a bunch of things to it. I think
Yeah,
there's-
that's what I don't know.
I think there's some
That
restrictions
should be
there.
in building.
I think you
grounds.
could do it exactly the way they did it on the original, the way Marquette's beautification committee does it. But that's some $40 to spend on there.
Yeah.
I don't know why we wouldn't just replace what they got there when it goes away. I don't know why
Yeah.
they're too nuts about it.
It's all a matter of what kind
We
of.
already don't like paying the light bill. I'm not sure we'll start putting flowers in there.
So-
In those roundabouts, there are not too many people looking and thinking, oh, the flowers are nice, bang.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't get too nuts.
It's mostly for keeping the dirt.
Unless you want to go on the farthest one out there in the west, you want to put in flowers, welcome to Marquette Township on it. You can do that.
Well,
So community promotion seems to be a significant opportunity for finding some funding. The pathway number and the events number seem to be the only ones that we really feel we probably can't eliminate right now. The netting and the beautification numbers could be
Adjust.
knocked down to a more reasonable number. I don't know that you need the netting number at all.
Yeah, I think we get rid of the netting number. I think it really depends on what path has or what they include.
because we don't have any
I
projects.
don't know why it's there.
That's the thing
Yeah.
that I said with the millage.
My opinion is you make that 5.5K per pad, 6,000, and it covers your 15%
Yeah,
contingency for the project.
but I'll find out for John Ken.
Yeah, it
Already,
just
just
says
to make
pedestrian pathway maintenance, so, I don't know.
That just seems like a strange place to put snowplow. Well, that even is a strange place to put crack seal.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. And we don't know anything about the 4th of July, if we're gonna have anything this year or
Well, if
not.
there are fireworks, we have the 1,000 that they normally collect.
Leave it there.
Okay, so everyone okay with making the paths number 6,000? And then eliminate the netting. What was the number we typically spend on beautification? Does anyone know?
Just for flowers.
I'd have to check on it with the each year.
Okay, well,
Wouldn't you think 1,000 would be top? Just, you don't remember.
Yeah, and then they buy other things like Christmas tree decorations. And, you know, there's.
I think maybe have Lois take check on it and see where we're at.
okay, I'm going to highlight those two. And when we get that one figured out, along with the revised social security numbers based on the 2.5% for appointed and elected, will be able to clean that up. I did increase upset to 5,000. And I'm thinking with those numbers, we will still be over 25 net effect. So we'll get that back to you.
John, you said something about the paths up here. What paths were you thinking about plowing this year?
Oh, I think we're gonna try to plow all the paths.
Okay, Warner
Along
Street,
the
Ontario.
highways is kind of where we've been trying to figure out, because we know the roundabout at Walmart is probably gonna be pretty heavily used. We've got sidewalk from Walmart to Wright Street, which makes sense, we do. The safe routes to school, we should do Werner and Ontario.
That's what you do now. You have been doing.
Yeah.
Did you have to try the sidewalks up there in front of the Riverside?
Well, I don't know that we want to, because the tunnel will be a snowmobile trail in the winter.
Yeah.
I guess if we're going to HQ, we could at least go to Riverside's driveway. I don't know how many people would want to walk down. this.
Well, doesn't that pathway go all the way to the roundabout? Isn't it running
The Best
currently
Buy
from
roundabout?
Old Wright Street to,
Yeah,
you're just talking about the other side of that?
yeah, we could do from the roundabout at least to Riverside's driveway. From their driveway to the west doesn't necessarily make sense in winter, because that would be sending them down the snowmobile trail, unless they're trying to cross the highway without going out to the roadside.
Well, I don't think
figure
it
that
makes
out.
any difference anyway, because when they get down to the trail, it's not gonna be clean.
Did you get an opportunity to use that snow blower last spring and all?
We did not. The only thing we know is what we saw at a demo up by Northern Natural Gas.
Yeah, it came in pretty late with that quarter.
Yeah, there was a little bit of delay.
All right.
Where is that, you're gonna increase upset
Upset.
to 5,000?
Correct.
I'm trying to find out where that's at in here.
That would be,
Pardon?
301.
contracted services law enforcement. So that covers the sheriff's department and 5,000 for upset.
Page 5.
So the new total there would be 213,458.
We want to do a glance on here. We have our gentleman here.
Yeah, before they push your button and fire alarm.
How quick did you blow that whole truck burning back?
I gotta make a phone call real quick.
Do you want to look at fire, I said.
Or we're actually past the
Starting.
time.
Did you specify 2-3?
I
You
did.
did. Oh, I beg your pardon. Sometimes we do, sometimes we just leave it over.
Another one.
2 hours is good.
I've got things I should do too.
We'll just wait till next, we'll just do it.
We can
start next.
Yeah, let's do this again. This was fun.
You are correct.
You don't have much to do here.
Oh, yeah.
We won't
I got
have-
lots to do.
We won't have much in fire to talk about. It won't be as near. General fund is the biggie. You know?
Yeah.
I don't-
Water and sewer is the big issue.
It is, yeah, but there's so many things that come from general. I mean, that's.
But water and sewer, we got one thing to remember, two things to remember. We got John and Lenny now instead of Kirk. So I think it's gonna go smoother.
But I think if we can go to 3:30 on fire, we'll be good. We can knock that off. Fire is usually not.
I know.
You wanna do it now?
Yeah, let's knock fire off now.
Talk fast, man.
Yeah.
All right, that, am I giving this as attaboy? I told hey, Rob, I'm sorry, no attaboys today.
Rob's gone.
Oh, he left, eh?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, right.
We'll be back.
I guess yeah, if we're gonna do it in 10 minutes, I guess you've seen everything. If you got any questions, I mean, you can see the fire marshal reductions. We switched it over to part-time salary. You can see we added the account, firefighting salary EMS weekends.
How's that been working?
It's been so far so good. And I know Trustee Lou had asked, I don't know, about a month or so ago, asked how that was going. Like I said, so far so good.
I see the boards getting
It's
filled
full. Yep,
a month in advance.
Yep.
It's great.
no, it's working real well so
Can
far.
you take a minute and explain to us what changed? Because we came into this thinking, or I did,
Yeah,
that
and
we're
I-
gonna have people every day till 8 o'clock.
Yeah, what happened was, well, we had proposed that with the understanding at the time, I'm sure, I know you're not aware now after the last board meeting, it caught me off guard, because I would have assumed you knew. But we went into that last year when we asked for that 0.3, saying we still are going to try other things, but if we need to, this is the maximum 0.3 to hire full-time to keep people at 8 o'clock in the evening. But I said, can we please, asked with the manager, I go, I think we can try this part-time and just go 7 days a week right now, and then use some on-call people. And they get their $2 an hour for the weekend. And I go, let's just try it. And it's been working out.
So there's nobody there past what time every day?
4:30. I mean, I wish we could say 4:30, but 4:30 is our schedule hours are 8 to 4:30,
Okay.
Monday through Friday.
And then you
Schedule.
have supplementing on call for the rest of the night or
Nope.
just till 8?
No, Sunday through Thursday, it's on call for anybody and everybody
After 4:30.
after 4:30. Friday and Saturday evenings, the two people that are working, the shift that works Saturday is on call Friday night. Shift that works Sunday is on call Saturday night. Does that everybody
So,
make sense to everybody?
When they're on call, if they're home.
They're home.
They're real close. They're not going out to the bar.
They can't, they've got to be within a few minutes.
Right.
I mean,
Like
it's not like
VP does.
they can be out to dinner. Well, big difference. I hate it because that's what Manager Gerard and I had argued quite a few times.
Okay.
There is a big difference. They can be there in 20 minutes. We have to be there in 4.
Oh, no, I'm
So,
sorry.
yeah, and that's something I really stressed,
Yeah,
that there is a big difference between the water department
yeah.
being on call and us being on call.
So let's back up again. You have Monday through Friday, you have somebody there 8 to 4:30.
Yep.
Saturday and Sunday, they're on call for the whole day. You don't have anybody in the station.
No, we do. But, yeah, between 8 and 4:30, 7 days a week,
7
Monday
days.
through, that could have been my area. I guess the full-time people, but the part-time people, if you will, are there on Saturday and Sunday, 8 to 4:30. 2 people. They are on call the previous evening from 4:30 until 8 in the morning. 4:30 Friday evening until Saturday morning
Okay,
at 8 o'clock. And then they work from 8 until 4:30.
glad I brought my
Am I
brace.
making sense? I mean, I don't know.
And then the Sunday guys are on from 4:30 Saturday until 8 Sunday morning, and then they're on.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I can explain something later.
Okay. I was gonna try to be quick
I
too.
guess
I was
I'm
like,
trying to
you bet, no,
fix
I know when you brought that up at the board meeting, I went, ooh, boy, because I apologize. I
John,
just
I said,
assumed
no.
this was related to, John brought it up. He didn't know.
Yeah,
John, he goes, I didn't
Randy
know.
never said.
And he goes, because Manager Gerard said that I think at this last board meeting, you said you didn't know. And that's probably, I think, the only thing we had said to each other, but yeah, we are, and never got a chance to.
Well, and because the board probably talked about this 3 or 4 meetings and, how much money and do we have to hire somebody else? And somebody was gonna donate hours and, it was a big thing. And then when you said something, I went, what changed?
You said something, I thought you knew, I know, I did, I caught me
Wow.
off guard. Because I had assumed, because this was over a year, and I just,
Never assume. Never,
Yep, well,
never.
I go to the manager and then
Yeah, well,
I guess I can.
it's part of it.
Because Dan's been like 6 months trying not to bring it up.
No, I have no
And then
problem,
somebody asked.
yeah, no, I have, With that, I have no problem, I know, but well, the truck might have been a little different, you know, the 25,000.
We're not
that
a
we
truck.
could hit. But, no, yeah, I apologize for not
Yeah,
You're
that's,
keeping
covered.
everybody abreast, and I guess,
You're covered.
pardon me,
You're covered.
yeah,
And there's been no problems with the coverage.
so budget-wise, that's not a big impact either, because you thought this was gonna cost you more money, so apparently it hasn't,
correct,
right?
correct.
And you have no problems with people signing up for it, man.
We've had one or two times, you know.
So say
We've
most
done
of,
it.
he's got a board, most of the time it's a month ahead of time, people got their names in there.
Right,
So,
it's also tell you,
General.
look, it's the same ones,
yeah,
and they're gonna get, I'm afraid of, because they're all working 5 days a week, other real, you know, their other jobs, then they're coming, you know, and it's the same ones. So they're gonna get burnt out pretty soon.
Yeah.
Probably.
we may have to go to that other,
Right, and then what we didn't know, it was a work in progress when we asked for that 0.3. And we tried, or I think the manager mostly, tried to express that this was worst case scenario. You know, not saying that we would hire them, but if this didn't work out, we wanted to try other options first. We had to. And I think I did say at that meeting a year or so ago now, that we would try other options. Because you saw the letter, we read the letter, clerk retired, read the letter saying, well, why aren't you at least trying? Well, of course, we're going to try that first. You know, but we had to give you the worst case scenario. We will try these things first. So far, it's been good.
Okay.
I mean, it's not cheap though either, but you'll see, as you come down the line items. As you say, on the very next line after fire, you know, reduction was in the fire marshal, as you saw, with the part-time weekend coverage. 903, I'm just reading the highlights, the very first, the second 903.339.706. Salary part-time, big increase there. I guess we'll get to line item. You'll see it's good, like a 30% increase over last year. Weekends, 339.706.200. It's a new account, and that's what our weekends is roughly costing us. Pretty close, pretty good number. Firefighting capital firefighting vehicle. Approximately 57,000.
does that include lettering and stuff, too?
Yeah, we won't do much. We were planning to bid it out as an orange truck, and we're gonna put a couple stickers on it. And we already priced out lights and a radio. Taxes, I'm glad to see, I had some concerns in my original, when we originally went through the budget. I did not project 867, because this year we only collected 831, so if we get 867 next year, I'll be very happy. So that's what we did under the manager Gerard's recommendation. That's what we did budget for. But he budgeted at 867. Nothing really. I mean, I'm trying to go quick here too.
We can look at this again, too. We always do
Nothing
wrap up.
really stands out besides those couple items and the truck purchase. Everything else is 2.5% increase, except for, like I said, the firefighting, part-time. Give you a page number here. 206-5. That'd be 339,706. If you're just looking at numbers. That's a pretty good size. That's a pretty significant increase. Our call last year was 80. Calls for service this year were already up 25%. And that's with a very, very slow April and May due to COVID. It's increased that much. Like I said, I want to take.
I had a question on uniform. You're talking about new firefighter coveralls? and
Correct. I forgot about
Bunker gear replacement. Didn't we get something from the tribe for summer, or am I wrong?
No, we did. We got, we purchased boots. We got $26,000, I believe, to try. We purchased, that's when we purchased the boots, helmets, and gloves. But we do have wildland gear that is not gear, coveralls that are 18 years old.
Okay.
They're getting a little thin. And so I thought, well, I'm going to budget for them. I mean, that's the nice thing about when as having the part-time staff, we do have a little bit of extra money that we can purchase some other things, and that's one of the areas.
That's fine. I just couldn't remember exactly where all that dollar went.
Yeah, that was from the KBIC and only 26 something.
Yes.
And like I said, that was boots weren't cheap, and helmets. I'm not anticipating a grant.
Looks like you had 17 reductions, you know.
And overall,
Overall, it went to
overall,
17 reductions.
well, I'll just, yeah, but if you look at the grant, we didn't get the $100,000, $26,000 grant. So if we take that away, the data ended up, it might change a little bit.
Why have you got a reduction in hospitalization?
That would be a manager, okay, not manager, would have, in hospitalization.
Yeah.
All those numbers would be a lowest in
So that had to do personally.
That's me personally.
Yeah, something changed.
Oh, yeah, they maybe put 4 in there, there's only 3, and maybe that was why.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, numbers like that, they come from the manager or analyst.
Not much change though.
No, there really isn't. No,
And the other revenues, that 26,000 includes the 25 for the truck, is that correct?
correct. Yeah, we usually get, and I won't say a name, but usually a large store gives us $1,000 every year. So I guess we're anticipating this year. So maybe that's wrong to do, but they always have in the past. And yes, and then 25 for them.
All right. Yeah, I noticed that was 25,000 plus 1,000.
Well, yeah,
Gives you a revenue that's 750 less than what you normally budget for that.
right. Yep.
All right.
When it came down to your vehicle, the transfer to the B&G, and what the hell, B&G probably.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, that was
Building grounds.
Those grounds.
Yeah,
I saw that too, and I went, oh, I forget.
building grounds,
Yeah.
I just stopped at the improvement.
And most of our related expenses or our increases is due to calls for CFS, calls for service. Ambulance transport fees, ambulance, billing, medical supplies, and firefighter part-time. It's all related to the volume of calls, and we just did not anticipate getting this many calls.
And under
This
nine,
fast.
under 930, repair and maintenance, 4,000 to 1,500. On page 5, 2065. Call number 930, repair and maintenance.
Oh, the 150?
Yeah, 930, repair and maintenance, proposed 4,000, change was $1,500. On page 206-5.
930 repairs and maintenance change $1,500. That was firefighting I guess we are gonna need some radios and pay, we are anticipating, our radios are 20 years old in our vehicles.
Yeah,
We didn't, all our mobiles, or excuse me, portables are new, but all of our mobiles are 20 plus years old. We're anticipating having to do some repairs. SCBA's we should be good on, that probably didn't need to be in there, but we are gonna keep our old ones. And just firefighter equipment, our pagers, we do need to start replacing them, and we usually, and I don't like to, but it makes it nicer for us. I see what kind of monies we have in case we had a big item we had to buy, then I'm not gonna buy pagers this year, but if we get a little bit closer to the end, we don't have to buy 5 SCBA's or something, then we're gonna buy,
Ken's coming back.
then we'll purchase some pagers
what
also.
about your aerial truck, 26 years? How long are they good
It's-
for?
They're good, they're good forever.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's gonna hold up. I mean, they're certifiable forever. I mean, like I said, it is 26 years old, and we are putting a truck committee together after the first of the year. In anticipation of maybe in 3 years, getting a truck. I mean, financing.
Well, I just think when I see the reduction of it, that I look at my sheet there and a bunch of oil leaks and stuff like that. So why don't we do- Moving right along.
Yeah, I mean, they're not bad. You come over and look at our garage floor. You know, if you look at our garage floor, that's the mechanic putting, that's the mechanic's words.
Yeah.
You know, because if they, it's not like, how much you do in your garage, you can go, oh my God, I gotta get that fixed. It's on the garage floor. I mean, we care about our garage floor too, and
I
it's
know, always nice.
minor leaks.
Coming back, we're about ready to wrap up anyway, but I did tell the board what we were thinking. And the manager and I are talking about maybe a $5,000 donation for your booth from 1,000. But I'd really like to have you tell us something. Tell us what you're doing.
Sorry, I had to log off.
Oh, that's fine. We kept you a long time.
Yeah, you did. I'm glad I was able to make it back on. So sorry I had to log off before. I had to run out for an emergency real quick. But so what I've seen, I've been on Upset for the last 8 years, and I've overseen it as a lieutenant. And what I've seen is, back in 2012, we had a ton of meth labs that were a significant portion of our activity. And a lot of those happened throughout Marquette County, primarily Delta County, and several other counties in the UP. And I'll give you a brief idea is that Upset is actually funded through community contributions, some grants that we apply for, and private contributions. So when I look at our financials, it takes about $185,000 a year to operate this team. The salaries of the agency, of the detectives on this team, they actually are paid for by their own individual agencies, and they just give me their body and they say, hey, we'll pay their salary, but you get them, put them to work. And that's what we do. We try to have Marquette City officer. He just doesn't work in Marquette City. He works in all areas across the UP, primarily up here in Marquette County, Alger County, Baraga. But, the great thing about Marquette is that they say, he's yours, put him where the work needs to be. And what we've seen out of Marquette Township over the years is just more of drug trafficking in the forms of crystal meth that's been coming up here from from other states, source cities. And we find that a lot of the hotels are constantly being utilized for drug trafficking. People from Chicago, Milwaukee, Detroit, they keep their anonymity by keeping their own hotel rooms, having them being rented under somebody local's name, but they stay in them. So they're really trying to hide their identity up here. We've done a really good job of actually identifying sources early on. So we're not spending months and months and months trying to just find out who these people are. We have to have a great community up here that's providing us information and tips about, hey, I saw this person stayed at a hotel and I've seen them up here 2 or 3 times before with a local drug addict. And that gets us in the door, so to speak. But when you look at what other townships, what other municipalities are contributing to Upset, you have Chocolate Township. They give us $5,000 a year. Iron County, they give us $10,000 a year plus a little extra every once in a while when the sheriff pulls it directly out of his budget. They can't afford to put an officer on the team, and their contribution is that at least maybe we can help out a little bit financially to keep the team operating and running. I've got to pay for all the vehicles. I got to pay for all the cell phones, the office expenses, and it's taxing on us to operate this team. But we do it knowing that we're going to serve not just the communities that put in money, but all the communities that have a drug problem. And drugs don't cross state lines. Drugs don't stop when you cross county lines. Drugs are everywhere, so we're going to go everywhere. That's the idea. But Ishpeming, they give us $10,000, sometimes up to $12,000 a year. They're Tilden Township. We had some great cases that just came out of Tilden Township, and they went from $1,000 up to $5,000 this year. So when I compare what some other municipalities are giving, not just to Marquette County, but throughout the UP, I guess what I'm looking for is I know how much activity is generated out of Marquette Township. One, because I have an office that's actually in Marquette County where a quarter of my detectives work. So I know you're getting your bang for your buck big time when it's just putting in 1,000. So what I'm asking your board to consider is really increasing that significantly because of the fact of, one, we do see a large amount of drug trafficking in Marquette Township because of the businesses that are there. Believe it or not, Walmart parking lot is a great place for people to congregate and not be identified with a simple drug transaction. Now I can't congregate in big groups, but they pass from shoulder to shoulder, and a drug transaction takes place there on a regular basis. Same thing with Target, same thing with these big box stores. If you blend into a crowd of cars, then there's a drug transaction going on there. So a lot of the businesses, a lot of the hotels, they are hot spots for drug trafficking just because of those reasons. So again, I guess I don't want to eat up too much of the time. I know you've discussed it already, but I'd be happy to maybe when this COVID thing is done of coming to a board meeting and giving some larger presentation about statistics and how our investigations actually work and how we coordinate with the other local agencies, how we utilize the fire department for call outs for meth labs that we still do get. But I ask you this because I am taking a look at what other municipalities are contributing across the board, and just given the population and the activity that comes out of Marquette Township for us, I just ask you to consider maybe that increase in contributions based on our activity, and we want to continue to do good work for you.
Well, that's really illuminating. I think I would think that the board would agree that we thought we were making a contribution to something we believe in, not even thinking that there was anything, not that we're naive enough to think nothing's going on here, but apparently not to the magnitude that it is. So personally, I would love to hear a more in-depth conversation of what you do and how effective you are. I mean, obviously not the details that you can't share, but just more information I think would be good for whenever you want to come back. You tell us, and we're here. We've been doing everything Zoom. This is our first real meeting since COVID. So we're trying to stay, the governor's pretty much held us to doing our meetings. We'll see if that changes, from Zoom to in person.
Well, I'm like everyone else, most people anyway, I love the in-person meetings, and I know we have to follow those executive orders issued by the governor. Yeah, I'd be happy to come back, and if we can only have to do it by Zoom, I'd like to maybe put a presentation together, something I can put if I have to be on Zoom on the board, and just give you an idea, a breakdown of how we conduct federal investigations. It's kind of, I say this, but I love bragging up the team's work, is that when you look at all the other federal agencies, they're actually in my office with us. So you got ATF agents, DEA agents, agents from Homeland Security Investigations, Bureau of Indian Affairs agents. They all work with us because we are the ones that, when there's drugs being sold in the UP, they know that to start that investigation, Upset's going to have the best information on it. So actually, there's probably around 28% of our cases go to the federal system, which means higher penalties, and these people go away for longer periods of time. However, we do work with the Marquette County Prosecutor's Office to ensure that those users don't get caught up in that federal system and have their lives kind of pushed away forever. There's some hope for them and finding some type of program to get them into so they can, be a positive force in society. But that's me going into this presentation again. But I would love to come back at some point in time. And if people have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them now, or, give a much more complete presentation in the future. So.
Any questions, Lieutenant, right now? Well, if you want to put something together between now and the end of the year even, I would love to have you either Zoom in or not, compile your information and let us know.
Okay.
When it's ready.
I'll stay in touch with you, Lynn, and I'll reach out to you again like we've been, and I appreciate you giving me some time to speak today. So.
Yeah, glad you
Have
reached
you
out.
indicated to him what we've increased it to?
Yeah, I kind of started off that way, but we did take it up to 5,000.
That is outstanding. Thank you so much.
Now, I don't know. We got a tight budget as everybody does, but.
You do. I'm a resident of Marquette Township, so that makes me extremely happy just as a resident. But also when you're talking about, I tell small townships, Avon Township, way up in Lance, that, if you can only give 100, that's great. 100, we'll make sure it goes a long way. And then next thing you know, they said, well, we'll give you 1,000. How about that? And I appreciate you, all of you, making a bigger commitment to us as well. And we'll make sure you get every dollar's worth. So thank you.
I don't doubt that. Not for a minute, but I appreciate the information. That's, like I say, we thought we were just contributing like to the fireworks fund, but this is needed revenue.
No, all these types of funds will actually go towards covering costs as far as doing undercover controlled buys, equipment for the detectives to use in their federal investigations, and making sure that they have what they need. We're just like any other police agency, except we don't have any funding behind us besides what communities say, we beg them to contribute. And I didn't have to do really any begging here, Lynn. I really appreciate you giving me some time here. And I again appreciate the increase. Thank you so much.
Sure. And I think we do that the first of the year, right? Do we write that check?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Because it's the next budget.
Thank you for what you do too, Tim.
Yeah. Be
It's
safe.
our pleasure. It's our pleasure.
Well, thanks for zooming back in. I'm glad it
All
worked.
right. I'm glad I found the time. Thank you so much.
Yep. Right. What else on fire? Anything?
Well, we can always look at fire again and
Yep.
wrap up.
Yeah, we will do that. That way, if you've got any questions.
If we have any questions, we know where to find it.
Having made the adjustments we talked about with a couple of little tweaks remaining, Social Security in particular, in the general fund, and then the beautification number, I think we're gonna be looking at a net effect of somewhere in the 30,000
Plus or minus.
plus.
Just for today.
That's based on the efforts we made.
Okay.
So that's close to double.
That's significant. So all the hard work we did the last few days. That's
Yeah,
good.
Thank
and
you,
I think
guys.
there's room in there too. It's just there's so many things that could happen in this next year that we have to have a plan for.
Yeah,
Dark stores
we
in
can't
particular,
give it
that
all
could be an
up.
expensive year.
We can't give it all up. We don't know what we
Right.
might have to take money from.
Is everybody, just want to make sure everybody's clear on this, because sometimes we assume, and I know we don't want to, but just to make sure everybody else knows too. You know that the net effect for the fire department Everybody knows where that's going?
Your pocket.
Building payment.
Pizza parties.
Pizza party.
It's one,
building.
no, it's our apparatus fund. That's why I'm glad I know, I just assumed everybody knows, but I thought somebody might ask. But it's our apparatus fund, that 155,941. It's money we don't touch.
So along those lines, if the township creates an equipment fund, the fire equipment will remain in the fire fund.
Yeah.
Unless we do something different, but I would think it makes sense to manage it that way because there's already good plan in place there.
Sure. I think it has to, statutory, it has to stay there.
It does.
Yeah. By statute, it has to stay there. Right?
As far as I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just, yeah. Yeah, it's good.
All right.
Yeah. I'm gonna try and make it.
No public comment on the.
Yeah, let's close this.
Okay. We don't even need to adjourn. Just put us
Well,
down.
you just have to tell us what time we're done.
Three,
3:47. Okay, so next time we'll start public works.
Yeah, and then we'll circle back.
You will have Lenny and myself for that one, and we'll try not